Roger McGuinn, Dave Lawrence, how are you?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Looking forward to your visit to the islands. Glad to get a moment to talk to you. How's the connection on your end? Can you hear me really good? Do I need to turn it up, down, anything like that?
I'm sorry. I was in a restaurant. I walked outside and a big truck went by, so I couldn't hear that.
That's exactly what
now I do. I hear you fine now.
Okay, great. And let me just put a thing on here and we'll be rolling. Again, thank you very much for taking some time to talk to us. We really appreciate it. You a fan of public radio at all, Roger?
Absolutely. That's all I ever listened to.
Okay, cool. Well, then you're right at home here. All
things considered.
That's the show. That's what you're on right now.
All right.
For folks who are coming to your shows, if you can, describe what's in store in the way of material and presentation for both those who are familiar with you from your Byrds days and solo work, but also just for those who are curious who have been hearing about it.
Kind of a one-match biographical.
You broke up. You're breaking up big time. Big time. I didn't get any of that.
Okay. I'm getting 2 bars here. It should be all right.
Yeah, I mean, just take it from the top,
Okay. Answer to your question. I do kind of a one-man show. It's like a one-man play. It's autobiographical. I talk about how I got into the music business and people I met along the way and the songs that came along the way. And I tell stories between the songs. So I do the songs from the Byrds. I do Mr. Tambourine Man and Turn, 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 8 Miles High. So You Want to Be a Rock and Roll Star. And I do songs from my solo career like King of the Hill. And some songs from my Folk Den project, which is a labor of love to keep the old songs alive.
And we'll be talking about that in just a moment, actually. I really dig the Folk Den project. When we think about, as you present this, and it sounds like a unique way to do a concert, because you got to keep trying to come up with something that keeps people interested. Plus, at this point in your life, it's a great way to learn more about you. Is the structure of that something that has evolved, or have you figured out a presentation and you just do that each night?
Well, it's evolved, and I've got multiple modules in the stories that I can do. I can do, if we've been somewhere and I've done something similar to it, I will do something different. So I have quite a few stories, and it's rehearsed, but it's not. Hopefully, it doesn't come across that way.
No, I get what you mean, but it's an unusual presentation, but a cool one and a neat one to a good one. I guess I bet it's kind of challenging to tackle it every night.
Well, it was at first, but once you get used to it, once you get into it, then it's really fun.
All right. Does the crowd have any interactive, are they like talking to you at all during the thing? Or?
No, it's just kind of a one-way thing I present from the stage.
Got it. And now you mentioned it, the Folk Den, and anyone who's followed you online, and any fans who have been keeping an eye on you, clearly they would know this. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Okay, sorry. There's just some really loud noise there. Any fans who followed you online know about the Folk Den, and when you go out on tour, is there any way that this ongoing online project gets represented at the concerts, and can you kind of explain for folks who are not familiar with it, like myself, the concept of the Folk Den, and what you personally get out of doing this?
Well, I get a kick out of doing it because I love folk music, and I want to keep it alive. It started back in 1995 when I heard a Smithsonian Folkways album of traditional music, and it reminded me that I wasn't hearing a lot of traditional music from the new breed of folk singers. They had all become singer-songwriters, and I thought, what's going to happen when Odetta dies or Pete Seeger dies? This is almost 20 years ago. And I started putting songs up on the Internet for free download. And being a techie, I was able to do that, to record them and put them up for free download. And I've been doing that since November of 1995. I haven't missed a month. I do it once a month. And they're all traditional songs with the lyrics, the chords, and a little story about the song to explain what it's about, what it means to me, too, where I learned it. And it's just something that I enjoy doing. It's a public service sponsored by UNC in Chapel Hill.
It's great that it's had such longevity. So you started this idea online once a month, presenting what you saw as classic compositions that you wanted to preserve and share with folks and share the history of. It was November of 1995.
That's correct, yeah. I started in 1995. It's kind of early for the Internet. The Internet was just beginning back then, and not too many people had ways to download things, and it was way before MP3s, so I used to put them up in 8-bit WAV files.
What's also, it just kind of dovetails into and you're absolutely right. Yes, it's very tech savvy. And I'm marveling at the longevity of the bit, and as an online recurring bit that you've been doing and with such depth. But the other cool thing is, I guess it lends itself to, in 2000, you ended up in, I guess it was like forgive me for not knowing the correct form, it was like a Senate committee or something, basically talking about downloading and royalties and how the internet was affecting music rights and publishing.
Yeah, I went to the Senate. There was a hearing called, Is There an Upside to Downloading? It was right about the time Napster was popular. And I came across with saying it's kind of the new radio. It's publicity for the artists. Might be bad for big record companies, but it's good for artists because it gets their stuff out there. So it was kind of a controversial opinion. I remember Lars from Metallica didn't agree with me. He was sitting next to me, and he was there to protest because somebody had pirated his album, and they were upset about that, which I can understand. But I think in general it's good for new artists, and it's probably better for artists than it is for record companies.
It's such a crazy new world. I was talking with Ewer McAlkin and Hot Tuna. We're in town for like a week. We got to do a bunch of things, and one of the things we were talking about is it's so weird. You know, I'm in my mid-40s. It's a strange era when people buying music has become this really strange entity, and you've got this device you can plug into it on your phone at your house, wherever, and you can use YouTube, you can use other services, and it's just jukeboxes. It's really a strange concept, huh? To when you were young and you had to wait for a song or you had to go buy it. I mean, it was really, It's a different world.
Yeah, I used to have to go to the record store and buy a 45 for a buck.
Right.
Take it home and play it, and they'd wear out and get scratched and they're poppy and breaking. But these days, I mean, you're right. You don't have to own music. If I want to hear something, I go to YouTube. That's my go-to place for music.
It is wild. It's like it's a revolution. It's to end to hear a cat like yourself say that. You're digging into you because there's so much juicy stuff in there. Before the Byrds, you were able to gain some experience with some noteworthy artists, Judy Collins, who's been on the program, Bobby Darin, Simon and Garfunkel, to name some well-known collaborators. And one led to an actual songwriting gig, the famous Brill building in New York. Not a lot of folks that we get on the program have that. And if you can share with us the evolution that led to you doing that gig, and I know Bobby plays a role in that, and just how it shaped the Roger McGuinn that we know today.
Well, I was working for Bobby Darin as a backup musician and harmony singer. And then his voice kind of gave out, and he decided to take a break from touring. So he opened up a publishing company in the Brill building, and he invited me to move to New York and become a songwriter. And I thought it'd be a good experience. So I moved to New York, and the pay was really low. It was $35 a week, which was something out of like a 30s movie. and so to supplement my income, I became a studio musician, and I did a lot of studio work with Judy Collins and Paul Simon and Irish Rovers and other artists that were out there. And it just sort of evolved because Bobby wasn't on the road anymore, and I had to do something else. And I really didn't enjoy going to the Brill building. It was like an office gig, which I was used to the road. I was used to the excitement of traveling and getting on stage. And so I didn't really stay with it very long.
It is.
I only managed to write one song that got to be a hit in Australia. It's a song called Beach Ball, and it was a hit done by Jimmy Hannon, who was the Australian Elvis Presley. And the guys who sang backup on it were the Bee Gees.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Wow. Yeah, and I would always the picture you paint of working in that place is what I would have thought too. It seemed like, wow, what a sterile, weird, anti-rock and roll kind of thing. But and sometimes, as I was saying, sometimes you get cats on the program who have been there, worked in there, know about it. Smokey Robinson, whatever. People who have just bumped into Carole King stuff. So, you have any weird run-ins, or not weird, but any interesting run-ins with other noteworthy cats, people we might know?
No, because it was modules. You go to an office, and the office had it was broken up into like cells, really, 8x5 offices, and so you'd sit there on a metal folding chair in front of a piano, and I'd have my guitar, and I wrote with Frank Gehry and Artie Resnick and some other people when I was there, and it was just like a gig. You go there and you work sort of 9 to 12, and you get like a lunch break, and then you come back and work till 5 and go home. And I really didn't dig it. It was like not my thing, but I think it was a great experience, knowing how to form songs, how to write the verses and the choruses and the bridges and different elements that go into songs.
I think it lends itself to the kind of all out. When I look at your whole package, I guess when I think about the innovative aspect of the Folk Den. 20 years now, or coming up on 20 years of that, and when I think about the way you presented yourself before the Senate, which was I think a pretty, you had some foresight there about what would happen with music and the value of spreading it in the way it was. It just, to me, getting to work in a place like that, it comes into a full picture, I guess, of your life with songs.
Well, I'd say it was a good experience, and it did teach me the craft of songwriting, which I have used in the Byrds and other places. So, yeah, it was a good thing.
Yeah, and just appreciating songs, because now with it doesn't even have to be something you've written. You've really put your stamp on other people's stuff with the classic repertoire of the Folk Den. And Guy, as that experience was one that you said not as much fun, and who could blame you, kind of being like in the suit side of the business. The opposite end of it, I'm assuming, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but from a fan's point of view, your collaborative efforts with Bob Dylan, pretty heavy name to be associated with, whether it's the soundtrack to Pat Garrett, Billy the Kid, which included Knockin' on Heaven's Door, whether it's Ronaldo and Clara, which is done around the time of the Dylan's Rolling Thunder Review Tour, which you were a part of. If you can kind of just get us to the first time that Bob came into your life and what it felt like.
Well, I met Bob. I didn't really meet him. I saw him in the Village when he was there. I saw him at Gertie's Folk City before he was hired as an act there. He was just doing a hootenanny, which was called an open mic these days. And I said hi to him and everything. And then he came to our studio in L.A. when the Byrds were getting together, and we'd already decided to record Mr. Tambourine Man. And he and Bobby Newirth showed up, and they listened to a few of the songs we were doing, including Mr. Tambourine Man, and they liked the treatment. They liked the approach to it, that we were putting a Beatles kind of approach to the folk songs. And he gave us his endorsement. He said, yeah, you can do it, even though his manager, Albert Grossman, wanted to take it down. It was something, Bob gave us permission to do it, and it went up the charts and got that. So that's the first time I met Bob. And then he came and sat in with us at Ciro's, and that was a real honor. He came and played harmonica with us, and that got on the back cover of the Mr. Tambourine Man album. And then I toured with him, I saw him around, you'd see him around, but I toured with him on 1975 Rolling Thunder tour, and that was incredible, with Joan Baez and Joni Mitchell, Elliott, Allen Ginsberg. Oh, I have such great memories of that tour. And then I toured with him again. Well, he used to live in Malibu, and I did too. And he'd come over to my house, and we'd hang out. And that's how I got the Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid thing. He invited me to come down to the film studio and record the soundtrack of that.
Personal experiences with him, it's a real rare thing for a lot of folks. Was in your downtime or time that you weren't doing music in a studio or on stage, what were the kinds of things you would talk about? Would you talk about music, or would you venture into other topics?
Yeah, we talk about everything. We talk about different things. But one time we came, kind of ran down all the folk songs we knew, and he showed me all the folk songs that he'd been influenced by, and I showed him the ones I had, and we kind of compared notes. We spent hours doing that. And other times he'd come over and I'd show him movies. So he said, man, it's hard work to watch a movie.
And it'd be just you and Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
Wow. Have you, I mean, it begs the question, have you maintained a relationship with him?
I haven't seen him for quite a few years. He's really busy on the road, and so am I. Yeah, he'd come over with like other people, like Chris Christopher or Harry Dean Stanton, Bobby Newirth, different people.
And when you got that Rolling Thunder review gig, it's I'm assuming it was like late '74. I don't know when they got in touch with you, but if you'll tell us, how did they get in touch with you? Did they call your agent? They call you? Was it Bob himself? I mean, that must have been such an honor for you.
I was on tour with my band, and I stopped in the Village because I had some time off and went to a club. I went to the Bitter End, which is, I think, called the Other End at that point. It changed names. I walked in the back room, and there was Bob and Jacques Levy sitting at a table. And now, Jacques Levy is a Broadway writer and producer, director, and he was very dramatic. And so he got up and kind of threw the table over, and they were both drinking brandies, and the brandy went flying like in an old cowboy movie or something. And they said, Roger, we were just talking about you. We're thinking about putting this tour together, and we want you to go on it. I said, oh, man, I can't do it. I got all these dates booked with my band. And they said, And then the next day, Ratso, Larry Sloman, called me up and said, you remember last night that you turned Bob Dylan down for a tour? I said, yeah. He said, that's not really a good idea. I said, you're right. So I called my agent, and I canceled the tour with my band, and I went on the Rolling Thunder tour. And I haven't regretted that.
Of course you haven't. What a beautiful thing. What a beautiful thing. It's just cool, man. You had some really... You've gotten to, that I've only seen you once, so I'm really looking forward to this tour. When I saw you, it was almost 30 years ago, which is hard to believe, but it was 1987, and it was not your tour with, I guess it was Tom Petty that you also did that year, but you did a gig. It was, I saw you at the Tower Theater in Philadelphia in the spring of '87 with Alvin Lee and Steppenwolf and you.
Wow. I don't remember that gig, but I believe you.
Yeah, no, it was you and then Alvin and then John Kay and Steppenwolf.
Okay. Yeah, I was on tour with Steppenwolf. I remember doing that tour. Yeah, they were an interesting band because they were early adapters with MIDI, and their whole thing was, even the drums were all like, computerized. The whole thing was like on a MIDI track, and if the computer crashed, then the whole show stopped.
That was an awkward era too for classic rock. It was such a strange point in time, looking back at it, especially when you see it from now. And finally, as I wrap it up with you, Hawaii, do you have anything in particular? You mentioned Chris Christopherson. Of course, he lives on Maui, and I just wonder, do you have any personal connections to the islands that make you smile when you think about the state?
Well, I love Maui. I've been there many times, and in fact, Peter Fonda got me to be a member of the Lahaina Yacht Club at one time as a crew member on his boat, and so that was a lot of fun. And the time I went to the yacht club, David Crosby was there, so we were hanging out together at that. It was many years ago. I can't remember the date, but and then there's a folk song in the folk den called "Rolling Down to Old Maui." And it's a whaling song about a crew that was based in Maui and went up to the Kamchatka region of Russia to do their whaling for 6 months. And then they came back, and they got to live the other 6 months in Maui.
I'm thinking that'd be a great one to break out when you're on the Valley Isle.
Yeah, I think so, too.
I like it. It's Roger McGuinn. He's got a lot of great stories to tell, great music to share, innovative presentation he's doing. I hope that you had a good time talking today on All Things Considered, one of your favorite shows.
It is indeed. I love public radio, and I listen to All Things Considered. Was
this all right? Did I keep you entertained?
Yes, you did. You did a great job. Very good. Aloha. This is Roger McGuinn, and you're tuned to All Things Considered with my friend Dave Lawrence on member-supported Hawaii Public Radio.
You're a good man. I've just put this bug in your head. We have a really nice facility here. It's like a mini Austin City Limits kind of thing, but for radio. And I'd love to, and even without an audience, it's a great room to do some brand reinforcement. You come in, you play a couple songs acoustic, we talk, 10, 15 minutes, you're out. Or we could do something a little bit more, just something nice in there, a little interview performance segment. I'd love to put that in your head. It's in Honolulu, on the Honolulu part of your tour. And it'd just be a fun thing to do with you if you're up for it. It would support the radio station. It would help expose your brand. It would probably be a good thing for your dates.
Okay, I'll keep it in mind, Dave.
Awesome. Roger, be safe, brother, and I look forward to seeing you when you're here.
Okay, great.
Thanks
for the interview.
You're welcome. Thanks for being on the show. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye.